By the time leadership truly mattered, the word itself started to feel like a lie. No one felt strong. No one felt confident. No one felt ready. The platoon had been awake for stretches that no longer registered as time. Sleep came in fragments, minutes stolen while kneeling in mud, eyes half open, rifle balanced across thighs. Hunger wasn't sharp anymore. It was a hollow pressure behind the eyes, a constant ache that drained warmth from thought itself. Men forgot words mid-sentence, forgot why they stood up, forgot what day it was. That wasn't accidental. That was the design. The acting platoon leader stood slightly apart, map pressed against his chest, red lens flashlight trembling in his hand. His fingers didn't shake from fear. They shook from depletion. Kylie watched him without expression, reading the micro-delays, the way the man opened his mouth, closed it again, reordered thoughts that refused to hold shape. Ranger instructors were watching too, but no one could see them. They never stood where leaders expected. They stood where mistakes revealed themselves naturally. A wrong pause, a snapped command, a leader who stopped listening. The platoon waited. Not patiently. Waiting while exhausted was its own kind of cruelty. The acting platoon leader finally spoke. His voice came out low and uneven at first, then steadied as he forced it into the cadence of doctrine. Naira stood on his right, scanning the tree line, doing the quiet work that kept the formation from collapsing into noise and drift. Joran was behind the lead file, tracking spacing with the dull, relentless focus of someone who had long ago stopped relying on adrenaline. Leadership now wasn't inspiration. It was clarity under collapse. The last meal had come hours ago. One MRE split awkwardly among too many men. Someone got the crackers. Someone else got the peanut butter. No one got enough. Caldas had watched the distribution without comment, already cataloguing the math of resentment before it surfaced. Hunger made everyone brittle. A ranger muttered under his breath when ordered to move again. Not loudly, but loud enough. Another ranger heard it. A look passed between them, quick and sharp. The acting platoon leader saw it. This was where weak leaders pretended they didn't. Strong leaders addressed it immediately. He stepped in close, voice low, the kind of tone that didn't invite an audience. Not here. Not now. The ranger nodded, shame flashing across his face before it could harden into defiance. He adjusted his ruck and moved without another word. The platoon kept going. Leadership sometimes looked like confrontation without escalation. The swamp offered no clean choices. A movement corridor flooded unexpectedly. Water rose to the waist, then the chest. Packs dragged. Weapons had to be held overhead. The file slowed, not from cowardice but from physics. A simulated casualty stumbled and nearly went under, arms windmilling, panic blooming in the brief loss of footing. Bram was closest. He caught the man by the shoulder straps and hauled him upright without a word, but the moment still cost them. Time, noise, focus. The platoon leader had seconds to decide. Press through and maintain the timeline, or halt, reroute, and accept failure in one area to preserve combat power. He chose to reroute. Naira didn't question it. She immediately shifted security, pushed the formation into a new line of travel, and kept the move quiet. Joran adjusted the count, recalculated drift, and brought the compass back to center. Elowen passed the correction down the file in a whisper, so controlled it barely counted as sound. Later, the ranger instructors would ask why. His answer would matter more than the result. It happened at night. It always did. The platoon halted in a shallow tree line, water lapping at boots. An acting squad leader, one of the stronger performers earlier in the phase, stopped moving and stared ahead, unblinking, not frozen in fear. frozen in overload. Someone touched his arm. He flinched hard, breath stuttered, eyes glassy. I can't think," he whispered. Cale saw the moment for what it was, not weakness, but depletion reaching critical mass. The platoon leader reacted instantly. He pulled the man aside, grounded him with simple instructions, gave him a single task: left sector security, nothing else. Removed decision-making without removing dignity. Sayela watched that exchange from 2 meters away, expression flat, and filed it away as its own kind of lesson. Leadership here wasn't about never breaking. It was about recognizing fracture before it spread. Ranger School judged followers as harshly as leaders. A ranger who dragged his feet when he wasn't in charge. A ranger who checked out mentally when no one was watching. A ranger who undermined authority quietly. Those flaws surfaced now, and the swamp magnified them until there was nowhere to hide. But so did the opposite. A ranger quietly redistributing ammunition without being told. Another adjusting spacing instinctively, correcting drift before the leader even noticed it. Someone taking point without complaint, because no one else could hold it anymore. Mara did that once, stepping forward when the file hesitated, taking the burden without looking back for permission. Corin followed her without discussion, closing the gap that exhaustion had opened. These acts were invisible to most, not to ranger instructors. Leadership changed hands again and again. Some students dreaded the rotation, others craved it, believing the next turn would redeem earlier mistakes. It rarely did. The course didn't reset for anyone. Fatigue compounded, hunger compounded, stress compounded. A new platoon leader took charge and immediately began issuing rapid-fire instructions. Too many, too fast. Confusion spread. Formation tightened dangerously. Men slowed, not out of defiance but overload. The leader sensed it too late. A ranger instructor stepped closer, did not intervene, just watched. The leader adjusted, slowed down, reissued orders clearly. The damage held, barely. He survived the rotation. Barely. Sleep deprivation did strange things. Men hallucinated movement in vegetation, heard voices that weren't there, lost track of time entirely. Leadership under these conditions became deeply personal. A leader had to decide when to push and when to protect. Push too hard and the platoon fractured. Protect too much and the mission failed. There was no formula, only judgment. As the phase neared its end, ranger instructors compressed everything. Leadership positions rotated faster. Missions stacked closer together. Recovery time disappeared. They weren't testing skill anymore. They were testing character under erosion. Who still enforced standards when exhausted? Who still corrected safety violations? Who still looked out for others when no one was watching? Peer evaluations came like a storm everyone could smell, but no one spoke about. Rangers judged each other with brutal honesty because they had to. One review could end a career. Reputations mattered now, not for volume or strength, but for whether others would follow again. Some students realized too late that they'd lost their platoon weeks ago. When it ended, it didn't feel real. The platoon formed up in mud-stained uniforms, faces hollow, eyes sunken. Ranger instructors stood before them, unreadable. Names were called. Some were missing. Those rangers already knew. Those who remained felt something close to grief, for the ones lost, and for what they themselves had become to survive. The Ranger tab was not a trophy. It didn't mean you were the strongest, the smartest, or the fastest. It meant that when stripped of sleep, food, comfort, and certainty, you still led. You still followed. You still upheld standards when it would have been easier not to, because combat would never be kind, and leadership would never be clean.